Beloved, there is a power that many people overlook. It is not found in human strength, earthly wisdom, or natural ability. It is found in faith-filled words. The words that come from a heart persuaded by God's promises carry tremendous power to transform lives, change circumstances, and bring victory where defeat once seemed certain. One of the greatest principles of victorious living is learning to speak in faith before you see the manifestation. Many people wait until circumstances change before they begin to rejoice, but faith rejoices first. Faith does not depend on visible evidence. It depends on confidence in God's promise. When challenges arise, the natural tendency is to talk about the problem, the pain, or the obstacle. However, faith chooses a different language. Faith says, God is working, even when nothing appears to be happening. Faith declares victory while the battle is still raging. Faith proclaims healing while symptoms may still be present. Faith speaks abundance when lack is knocking at the door. This is not pretending that difficulties do not exist. It is recognizing that God's Word is greater than what our eyes can see. Faith sees the promise before it becomes reality and speaks accordingly. Every great breakthrough begins with someone daring to agree with God instead of agreeing with their circumstances. If you want to see your mountain move, don't wait until it moves to start believing. Speak God's promises today. Declare His faithfulness today. Let your words reflect what you believe God can do, not what the situation appears to be. Faith always speaks before it sees, and what it believes, it eventually receives. The words you speak every day are more powerful than many people realize. They are not merely sounds leaving your mouth. They are expressions of what you believe and expect. Your words influence your attitude, your decisions, and ultimately the direction of your life. What you continually confess today can become the reality you experience tomorrow. Many people unknowingly speak themselves into discouragement by constantly talking about failure, weakness, and impossibility. When negative words are repeated long enough, they begin to shape expectations and influence actions. A person who continually says, "I can't," often never attempts what God has placed before them. A person who constantly expects defeat may fail to recognize opportunities for victory. Faith-filled people learn to speak differently. They choose words that agree with God's promises rather than words that agree with fear. They declare strength instead of weakness, hope instead of despair, and victory instead of defeat. Their confession becomes a compass that keeps them moving toward God's purpose. If you want your life to move in a new direction, begin with your words. Let your speech reflect faith, confidence, and expectation. Speak what God has promised, not merely what circumstances suggest. When your words align with faith, they help guide your heart and your steps toward the future God has prepared for you. One of the most important principles of faith is that the heart and the mouth must work together. True faith is not merely saying positive words. It is speaking words that flow from a heart that genuinely believes. When conviction fills the heart, confidence naturally comes out of the mouth. Many people desire results, but their words often contradict what they claim to believe. They may pray for victory, yet continually speak defeat. They may ask for peace, yet constantly confess fear and worry. Faith becomes effective when there is agreement between what is believed inwardly and what is spoken outwardly. A heart filled with God's promises will produce faith-filled speech. This is why it is so important to continually meditate on God's Word. The more God's truth fills your heart, the easier it becomes to speak with confidence during difficult times. When challenges arise, your words will not be based on emotions or circumstances, but on what you know to be true. Before mountains can be moved outwardly, faith must be established inwardly. When your heart is persuaded that God is faithful, your mouth will boldly declare His promises. And when your confession consistently reflects your belief, you position yourself to walk in greater confidence, peace, and victory. A believing heart and a speaking mouth create a powerful foundation for a life of faith. God's promises are meant to be more than words on a page. They are truths to be believed, embraced, and boldly confessed. Faith-filled confession is the act of agreeing with what God has said and declaring it with confidence. When you confess God's promises, you are not trying to persuade God to act. You are aligning your heart and mind with His truth. Many believers know God's promises, but few consistently speak them. Yet there is tremendous power in declaring what God has spoken. Confession strengthens faith, renews hope, and keeps your focus on God's ability rather than your limitations. The more you speak God's promises, the more firmly they become established in your heart. When challenges arise, confession becomes a weapon against doubt, fear, and discouragement. Instead of speaking defeat, you declare victory. Instead of confessing weakness, you confess strength. Instead of repeating what the problem says, you repeat what God says. This keeps your faith active and your expectation high. Never underestimate the power of a faith-filled confession. Every time you declare God's promises, you are choosing agreement with His Word over the circumstances around you. As you continue to speak in faith, your confidence grows, your outlook changes, and you become increasingly aware that God's promises are greater than any obstacle you may face. The words you continually speak have a powerful influence on what you expect from life. When negative words dominate your conversation, they can shape your outlook, weaken your faith, and cause you to anticipate defeat rather than victory. What begins as a casual statement can eventually become a deeply rooted expectation. Many people unknowingly create barriers for themselves by constantly saying, "Nothing ever works out for me. I will never overcome this," or "Things will never change." Such words reinforce doubt and discouragement. Over time, they can affect decisions, attitudes, and actions, causing people to settle for less than what God has prepared for them. Faith requires a different approach. Instead of magnifying the problem, faith magnifies God's power. Instead of focusing on obstacles, faith focuses on possibilities. It refuses to allow fear, failure, or disappointment to have the final word. A faith-filled person learns to replace negative confessions with declarations of hope, strength, and victory. This does not mean ignoring challenges or pretending difficulties do not exist. It means refusing to let those challenges define your expectations. Choose words that build faith rather than fear. Speak life rather than defeat. As your words change, your expectations begin to change. And when your expectations are shaped by faith, you become prepared to receive greater things from God. Every person who walks by faith will eventually face a mountain. Some mountains appear as sickness, financial hardship, family struggles, disappointment, or seasons of waiting. These obstacles can seem overwhelming, but faith does not measure the size of the mountain. Faith focuses on the greatness of God. One of the greatest temptations during difficult times is to give up when results are not immediate. Many people begin with confidence but lose heart when they do not see instant change. However, genuine faith remains steadfast. It continues to believe when the answer is delayed. It continues to speak God's promises when circumstances appear unchanged. It refuses to surrender to doubt, fear, or discouragement. Sealed faith understands that every promise of God is trustworthy. It does not allow temporary setbacks to become permanent conclusions. Instead, it stands firm, knowing that what God has spoken will come to pass in His perfect time. Mountains rarely move because of one moment of enthusiasm. They move when faith remains consistent and unwavering. The key is not merely to start believing, but to keep believing. Continue declaring God's promises. Continue expecting His intervention. Continue trusting His faithfulness. When faith refuses to quit, obstacles lose their power, hope remains alive, and what once seemed impossible becomes possible through the power of God.